Hello and welcome to Breakthroughs with Bree, where we are discussing all the topics that create extraordinary breakthroughs in our personal and spiritual development journeys. I'm Bree, otherwise known as Healing with Bree, and I'm a spiritual coach and Akashic Records channelers who helps sensitives and intuitives connect more deeply with their hearts, intuition, and souls, and teaches people how to process and alchemize the fears and beliefs that hold them back from living in their authenticity and purpose. You're in the right place if you like to hear about spirituality, psychology, healing, consciousness, manifestation, developing your spiritual and intuitive gifts, and living from your heart and soul instead of from your fears and ego. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Breakthroughs with Bree. Today, we are doing an episode about physical health, about how health symptoms can manifest physically and how we can take a perspective, sort of a soul perspective, if you will, on our health and on our healing, especially if we ever find ourselves in a situation where not ideal health circumstances have manifested, or if maybe we're in a period before any of that has happened and we're just trying to be really proactive. I wanted to share my perspective on what I've learned about how us managing our energy, us managing our thoughts and beliefs, our emotions really have a big impact on what happens with our physical health. So I'm all connected to the Akashic Records, which, if you guys didn't know, is the records of everything. It's one of the places that I channel from most often. I have sessions, my Akashic activation sessions, where you can connect to your personal Akashic Records, which is the record of your soul from the moment of its inception until now. It's a wonderful energy. The Akashic Record keepers who help kind of like share the information, almost kind of like the librarians pulling from all of the records, are wonderful. They're so loving. They have a great sense of humor. They're so insightful, and being able to elicit information, elicit wisdom, and really elicit perspective from this band of energy that holds so much information about all that has ever been and the trajectories of what will come is just such a powerful thing to connect to. So if you're interested in like connecting with your own soul record and your Akashic Record keepers, I do offer those sessions, but I also connect to them quite frequently here and in my monthly group coaching calls. I do one call a month where I allow people to come in and ask questions to the guides and channel through answers and help coach not only like what the answer is, but how they might implement some of that information. So if you're interested in hearing more about those things outside of the podcast, those are some ways that you can do that. And of course, my coaching involves the Akashic Records channeling. I'm channeling throughout coaching with anybody, which makes it super customizable and really fun. Okay, Akashic Record keepers and guides. What would you like us to start with about health? Okay, they want to talk about how it happens. So the way that it's been shown to me that like our manifesting our reality works, which is really exciting, is that what is physically manifested right now is an accumulation of our beliefs and our convictions and our expectations from the past. So it kind of snowballs to create what's happening right now. So whatever we're experiencing right now isn't necessarily a direct result of what we're feeling, thinking, expecting right now. It's what we were feeling, thinking, expecting in the past. Right? So we have this really cool opportunity to observe what's happening around us, gain greater awareness, to learn something about maybe our own energy, our own psyche, because it's physically manifesting in some sort of way. And with that information, make adjustments if there's something that does not feel like it's in alignment, that does not feel enjoyable, that does not feel like it's like in the vibration of love. We get to like have this whole scenario where it's like projected and reflected outside of us, and we get to see it, and then we get to change it. And that feels like it's a really big part of the purpose of us incarnating here as humans, all that kind of stuff. Now, as that relates to our physical health, our physical body is like a metaphor for our energetic, mental, and emotional body. And when we have been in a state for extended periods of time, that manifests physically. So it also feels like whatever is happening for our physical health right now is a little bit more of a product of past versions of ourselves than it is like the absolute current one right now. The current state that we have, especially if we stay really consistent and potent in our intention and our energy, creates what our health might look like tomorrow or the next day or next week or next month, so on and so forth. And this can go in many directions. This can go for manifesting really positive aspects of our health or things that feel a little bit challenging. So the moral of that story, very, very simplistically, is that the combination of our intentions, our thoughts, our feelings and the consistency or potency in which we feel those things create the physical environment that our body responds to, that it then manifests as and is resulted in whatever the state of our health is. It's really interesting because I love how research catches up with what we've known in like the metaphysical or psychic world for a long time. It's just science didn't have a way to measure it yet, right? So, they're researching things like epigenetics, and this is not something that I am an expert in any way. It's just something I tangentially am fascinated by and learn a little bit about. And with my little bit of biological sciences education and background, I just feel, again, very fascinated by. But what they're showing is kind of this nature versus nurture thought pattern, right? Is it something that was inevitable as a part of our DNA, or was it our environment? And the answer that they come to is that it's a combination of both. And from a spiritual perspective, or when I tap into the Akashic Records, for example, they absolutely agree. And if you think about being passed down things from generations, right? That would represent sort of our genes or our nature, right? Whereas choices that we make and states of being that we reside in and places and spaces that we put ourselves in and relationships that we're in, right? All of that represents the nurture and the environment. And that has the ability to really change how those genes express themselves, how they get activated, or if they stay dormant, so to say. Now, what's interesting too is that there are a lot of people, and I'll just speak to this for a moment. I know that this is more of the exception than it is the rule, but there are some people who experience very, very acute health issues, right? Or random things that come out of nowhere. Maybe it's a big injury. Maybe it's a really rare disease. Maybe it's something that happened as a child, right? There are circumstances where health stuff comes up where it kind of feels like it was out of our control, right? Because what I'm suggesting here, especially for the adults listening, is that we have a lot and the ultimate power over our health. And if we're not exercising that power, that's okay. We don't have to be perfect. Again, it's here as a mechanism to kind of help us learn about ourselves and about our creative control over our experience. But we do have power and influence over it, even if we don't totally understand it or use it just yet. But if there were circumstances where it feels like that wasn't totally true, again, these extenuating circumstances, I will say that I have done some Akashic Record readings, which again are readings that tap into soul contracts and soul purpose for your life, your soul path, where there were contracts that were focused around health stuff. And the way that it feels to me is this: it's not that you were signed up to experience something terrible no matter what. That's not really how those things feel to me. Now, what it does feel like is that our higher selves, our souls, when we are, sort of agreeing on these objectives and things that will help us learn and experiences that we're agreeing to ourselves and with other people, is that our soul understands the likely trajectory based on our own soul signature and our sort of personality, you could say, as well as likely environmental things that are going to happen. Again, if you're picking your parents or where you're living, or, maybe you understand certain societal things that are likely to happen with that perspective you have before you incarnate, right? You just understand that there's something that's quite likely. And our souls don't resist those moments. We understand that we go through them and we grow. And we're always just trying to orient back to our heart, orient back to our soul as we move forward to gain wisdom, to gain experience, to gain expansion, to gain evolution, right? And to keep moving forward. So if there are, these people who have had these kind of, exception and odd acute health circumstances, and you're feeling I don't know that it feels really empowering to, take on that belief of, it was accumulation of me and I have power. I don't know if that feels great. There might be this element of your soul understanding that there was a likely set of circumstances that could possibly lead to this health thing. And your soul said, that's okay. I would learn something really, really valuable and really important. And that experience of moving through that health experience and moving through healing is something that my soul exactly needs. Or maybe it's a way that I am willing to be of service to other people. Maybe I've moved through a lesson like this before. If I stay connected to my heart and intuition, I know I can move through it again, and I can help other people. I can be an example of healing. I can share wisdom. I can be inspiring, because there's other people that I'm going to be around that I have contracts with that are really, really, really going to be positively benefited by me going through that experience. And usually it's a combination of both of those things, right? So there might be more to it. And I have seen in people's soul soul contracts that there are some different kinds of health events that do feel significant and sort of like they've been noted as options of things we might experience. And we were like, yep, okay, like we're going to do that. So if that's something that feels validating, if that's something that you've suspected about yourself, then I just wanted to share that perspective as somebody who has channeled into a lot of people's soul records. Here's another element of this that I want to share that I have dealt with personally and that I've seen with people who I've done sessions with and that I've done coaching with. It is so easy to get to a state in your health that's not positive, where you feel really discouraged, right? And this concept of learning how to leverage your energy and your thoughts and your beliefs and your emotions to influence your health is kind of a complex topic, right? I'm not insinuating that it's like totally common sense and totally easy. No, like this is information that I feel like as the collective has grown and expanded, like we've got more and more insight onto how this works. So it's really only in like some of these very current generations that we've even been able to see how this all fits together and then be able to like intentionally leverage it ourselves. So again, not easy. And I feel like sometimes when this idea is suggested that we can turn the needle on our health in a huge way simply with our intention and our mindfulness and our powers to manifest and co-create, that can be a little bit discouraging to people who are feeling a little bit powerless, who are feeling confused about exactly how they got to where they are, and maybe there's still grief or resentment or anger. You know, there's just not a peace with it, which makes sense because going through hard health stuff can simply just be very hard and difficult. And so again, I really empathize if there's this feeling of sort of like powerlessness when it comes to your health, like just being a victim to your body, thinking that your body has some sort of agenda or plan that you have to fight or that you don't get a say over, or that no matter how hard you try, you can't change, right? I hear those kinds of stories. I feel those kinds of energies in the collective a lot. And I have so much empathy for how we get there. And I feel, to me, how we get there is that we've tried and we haven't seen the change that we want. We haven't seen the success that we want. And we feel really frustrated by that. And again, it reinforces this idea that I can't do it. I don't have the power to do it. I don't have the information to do it. I don't have the resources. I don't have the support, right? There might be legitimate reasons why, you know, we haven't impacted our ultimate result yet. And then the ego comes in and comes up with these narratives that feel a little bit more soothing, like the ones that I said, having to do with, you know, our body having some sort of agenda or us being a victim to, you know, other circumstances, etc. I just want to say that if you're in that stage, again, I have so much compassion and empathy. There's a reason why we fall into those energies and perspectives sometimes. And a lot of times it has to do with experiencing legitimately difficult things. Very difficult. Distress, anguish, sadness. Probably there were a lot of circumstances early in life where when we didn't have power and influence, there wasn't really people who were looking out for us in the way that we should have. And we experienced things that were, you know, overwhelming or upsetting. You know, like there's a lot of validity to getting to that way, or I should say, to getting to that place. And I think if that's paired with a part of us who's a little bit of a perfectionist and then has this opposite energy of, if I can just control and get every single little answer and do every single little thing right, then I won't make any mistakes and I'll do it exactly how I want to and I'll never have to experience anything bad. And that coping strategy sets us up for failure too. It doesn't allow for a learning curve. It doesn't allow for experimentation. It puts a lot of pressure and it sets unrealistic expectations. And as soon as you try and it doesn't work, then it bounces you right back into victim and, this isn't going to work. And, you know, it doesn't put us in an empowered energy to learn and figure out how we can become masters of our own body and masters of our health. So if you're there and you're listening to this, be gentle with yourself. Try to come back to your heart and your soul about what's both a balanced and empowered way to look at whatever situation that you're in. I'm going to, of course, add some more insights about how all of this health stuff works from my perspective. So maybe that could be something that is empowering to you, but just, you know, do your best to listen with an open mind and an open heart, because again, that kind of victim energy about our health, it can be really sneaky at keeping us in resistance to the kind of information that actually would make a difference for us, you know? Okay, Akashic Record Keepers and Guides, what tips do you have for people, or what other things do you want them to understand about their health? Okay, so let's talk about the way that things manifest, like the process that things physically manifest, because this 100% applies to our health. So in terms of our like energy field, one of the highest vibrational parts of our energy field, which just means high frequency, which has to do with the oscillation of energy, the speed of energy. It's not like a moral judgment. Okay, like the highest vibration is that of our energetic and like spiritual field. This is very like quantum particle kind of stuff. Then we have our mental field. Okay. And that's why a lot of times when we're experiencing our, sort of like spiritual awakenings, one of the biggest ways that we initially sense this is in our mental field, especially with our third eye. It comes in, through our crown chakra into our third eye, is we start to see things, or we start to understand things through ideas or through visualizations or through thoughts, right? Like we absorb this into our mental field, and we also influence and project our intentions out into the ether, out into the spiritual world with our thoughts as well. We both comes in and goes out that place, right? This becomes where, again, we frame the world with our beliefs. Like, I believe that, the sun comes up every day, or I believe that my identity is Brie Pasqua, right? Or, I believe that I am a woman, or that I have a husband, or that I live in California. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of these beliefs of what we expect and how we interact with the world also take root in this mental field. Another layer down as we start to come into matter, as we start to come into the 3D world, lower vibration, which again is not a moral judgment, but just a representation of how fast or slow energy is moving. Really dense energy that we can touch is moving slower than spiritual, energetic, like quantum energy. Okay. So as we start to like move down and closer to the field, the next one is our emotional field, which is energy in motion. And it's starting to become more physical at this point. Now, what's really interesting when we talk about health is that emotions are a series of chemical reactions in the body as a result of what's going on basically in our nervous system, in our brain, and like our neural pathways, right? So this nervous system activates in certain ways. It sets off triggers in our body and for chemical reactions that we feel as emotions. Our emotions become almost like a sea of chemical states, again, of chemical reactions that the rest of our body, the rest of our cells then swim in, then live in, right? And then we have our physical body and our physical field that we can actually like touch, where matter is. Also where we take action, things are tactile. You get what I'm saying. Now, when we're talking about health, what's wonderful is that in the best circumstances, what can happen is that we might, sit down to meditate or something, and we use our intention and our focus to connect to a certain energy or vibration. I like connecting to my higher self, to the energy of my soul. It feels like it's like an all-encompassing energy of exactly the cocktail of vibrations that would serve me best in that moment. Right? So let's just say I connect to my soul, my higher vibration on that energetic and spiritual field, right? It's like using my mind to like circle and throw a lasso and like pull in the energy that I want, right? So I'm doing that with like my higher self, my soul energy, right? Like asking my higher self to vote and to channel in whatever energy is going to be perfect for me in that moment, right? And I'm staying focused there, and I'm letting my mind stay open for any thoughts, ideas, perspective shifts, anything that might come in on that mental field as that energy is literally running through my body. Like that currents of that energy are running through my fields and starting to run in through my physical body. Now, usually I start to feel a certain way if I stay focused and stay in that vibration long enough. I start to feel peaceful. Maybe I start to feel happy. Maybe I feel joyful. Maybe I feel gratitude, right? It's usually a very positive type of emotion, though sometimes I do feel like an energy that maybe I've been avoiding or something come up that needs to be felt. Like it really makes itself front and center. And then that energy that I'm channeling in from my soul into my body, it like surrounds it in a warm hug, and it make it a lot easier to move through. But anyway, when we're healing and we're bringing in that kind of energy, again, that emotional reaction that I have in my body when I'm thinking those really good thoughts that come through as a result of being connected to that energy is these chemical reactions that are very healing to the body. We talk about epigenetics being activated, right? Or deactivated. When we are in states of peace, of regulation, of happiness, of joy, of love, of gratitude, those are chemical reactions. Those are the sea of emotions that are healing and balancing and regenerating to the body. So the more time that we can spend in those chemical reaction, in those feelings, the more healing and vitality and balance that we're giving our body the opportunity to get to. And then, of course, again, all the cells in our body react to being in that place, and we start to see a result of that in our physical body, in our muscles, in our organs, in our skin, in our blood, etc. Now, of course, this works in the other direction as well. If we are getting caught up in energy and thoughts that trigger quote unquote negative emotions, which are ones that are not life-giving, that are like more deteriorating for the body, and we're experiencing fear and anxiety or shame or judgment or doubt or frustration, right? Like when we're in judgment or we're in comparison or jealousy, right? Like these are all emotional states that are a result of certain neural pathways, of certain thoughts, of certain beliefs that then create emotional states. They create chemical reactions in the body, and then our cells are like swimming in that emotional sea of shame. And that environment that, again, our physical body and our cells live in is what turns on any sort of thing that we might be predisposed to based on our genetic lineage. So if we do have a history of women who, have really struggled with fertility stuff, right? Which also has a lot of spiritual significance. And I'll talk about that too, kind of starting to interpret physical symptoms for the emotional, mental, spiritual implications of them. But let's just say, we have a line of mothers, grandmothers, all this kind of stuff who have manifested fertility issues, right? And we are swimming in our body shame or fear or whatever, all of a sudden our predisposition to that because of our lineage, that gets flipped on as well, as being in these states of fear and these sort of degenerative emotional states that we're not moving through and healing. And so most of the time our body is being activated into that and pulled out of balance based on that domino effect of it manifesting physically. And this can happen for any sort of health condition, any sort of syndrome, right? And again, if you maybe manifested these things very early in life before you really had much chance for that, or, if it was some external thing that happened that triggered that, consider what I said before. But our state that we are keeping ourselves in has a huge effect on how the physiology of our body is working for us. If it's working towards healing, if it's working towards balance and homeostasis, if it's having the opportunity to metabolize some of that energy before it manifests in our physical tissues and our physical cells, or if we just haven't been able to figure out how to do that yet, and therefore it manifests in our cells, in our tissue, as a way for it to finally be metabolized. And that's the other thing about the body that I think is so interesting, is that our whole being is trying to process and metabolize these things that come up for the sake of our wisdom and us being able to come back to the truth, right? I say this all the time. If we're in constant pain and suffering, then that means that we are believing something that's not true about ourselves, about the world, etc. Because when we're in alignment with that soul perspective of the world, when we're in alignment with our truth, we feel peace. We feel joy, we feel bliss. And the suffering, the constant suffering, is a signal that we are believing something that's really not true. Our soul is trying to help us metabolize those untruths, right? So that we don't suffer anymore. And our emotions, even, those chemical reactions, if we let them be felt and breathe through them, they can fully metabolize pretty quickly. But if we don't do that and we suppress them, then the final mechanism that our whole state, our whole field, our whole body has for finally metabolizing out these energies is in the physical body. So in a way, even us manifesting quote unquote negative health conditions or symptoms is a result of our whole being trying to work this energy out of our field, out of our state of being, right? And sometimes it like has to come to the physical because we just didn't have the tools, support, the insight, whatever, to work it out and process it out of our system energetically in our mental field, in our thoughts and beliefs, or emotionally. But here's the beautiful thing is that if it does get to the point where, again, these beliefs, these energies have manifested into something physically for you, you also have extensive and incredible power to create healing in your body again. The more that you can learn about the power of your energy and your thoughts to, first of all, affect the chemical sea that your cells are living in all the time. And then what I would add into that is also being able to follow the direction and the guidance of your soul and intuition towards the kind of health that you are envisioning for yourself, which is essentially manifestation, right? Like you have a vision of something, you hold that vision and you follow the guidance that comes up from your soul and your intuition on the way there. Maybe you have this inspiration to start walking a certain trail, and maybe you start feeling like a craving to eat certain kinds of foods, or maybe you get the feeling to work with a certain somebody that really helps you look at your health in a different way or learn new skills, right? Like you just start to listen your intuition that helps you take the action, the steps towards experiencing what you want to physically, right? All the while managing your thoughts, managing your energy so that the state that you're being in reflects the one that you want to have instead of the one that you've historically had and therefore has manifested whatever's happening physically for you. So I just think that this concept of health is really fascinating. The Virgo in me, who's like an overanalyzer and perfectionist, like I've had to keep my ego in check about this because again, that perfectionistic thinking could be pretty crazy when it came to this, like trying to avoid any sort of negative health symptom ever, or trying to overanalyze exactly, okay, what does this pain in my left shoulder mean? And why did I get a zit on this part of my face? And why do I have, like it could get a little crazy. I don't recommend that. I recommend just trying to be in harmony with your body and trying to be as mindful of the connection between all of the things in your life as feels empowering. There's going to be like a sliding scale, or there's going to be like a natural progression to how much we can understand and how much we can influence while we're on this healing journey. We do not need to have it all figured out all at once in order to find health or to find peace or to find empowerment. It is a journey, but I think understanding the way that we influence our health and can interact with it is a really important part of all of this, because we're experiencing this incarnation through our body. We're experiencing it through this vessel. And for us to have a really sacred relationship with that and being able to cherish this vessel and being able to understand how us taking care of ourselves and being responsible for ourselves literally impacts physical matter, aka our physical body, is just such a special thing and a really important thing that, of course, we are not like commonly taught. Akashic Record keepers and guides. What else do you want to explain about this? Yeah, they're saying that this topic can go really deep. And if it's something that you feel like you want to be generally aware of as you navigate your life, that's totally fine. That's good. And there's some people who are going to be totally enthralled by this and just like want to go deeper. Like listen to your own instinct about it. But having just this sort of general understanding that you are influencing your health and that at any point you can apply that intention and that energy and that focus to reconditioning the thoughts and the energy that you're staying in, and therefore the action steps that you take in your life to completely change the state of your body and the state of your health. Like you have the power over it. There's nothing more powerful and more influential over your experience, over your body, over your state than you. No genetic predispositions, no doctors, no people around you. Like they're not more powerful over your state of health, your state of well-being, like your experience than you are. And starting to learn how that's the case and learning that information and gaining those skills and maybe gaining support for how you can do that is something that can be such a blessing to us as we're trying to navigate all of this and feel as happy and healthy as we can. And it feels like, again, they just want to say for anybody who's manifested symptoms in their body that they don't enjoy, like you can start that healing process today. Like today, by allowing your body to be in states of peace and regulation and allowing yourself to think life-giving thoughts about yourself, to think and feel positively about yourself, about the world. Again, that's putting your body, your cells, in a sea of healing chemicals. Healing feelings are healing chemicals, are like physically healing to our body. Like you choosing to allow yourself to be in those states more often and act from those places, like you can literally start reversing or adjusting things that are happening in your body with those kinds of choices today. Now, the last thing that I will say that's like a really interesting subject is starting to intuit or understand the connection between certain things that have manifested physically and the meaning or origin of how and why they have manifested. One of the books that was recommended to me was The Secret Language of Your Body by Ines Siegel. I'm showing the book on the video if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. And what's really cool about this is it's kind of like a glossary. So you could look up a certain issue or a symptom and there's an interpretation of like what's happening emotionally and spiritually, as well as some remedies for how you can start to work with those specific parts of the body to create balance and healing again. So for example, let's open up to eye conditions, astigmatism, a distorted view of life, arguing with reality, wanting things to be different, unable to accept yourself or your life experience, holding on to feelings of rejection. You want to know what's crazy is that I definitely have astigmatism. So the guides are talking to me today. They're saying, Brie, there's perhaps an old version of you, maybe an inherited version of you that lived in a state of stress, and therefore it activated in you too to look at life with a distorted view, maybe argue with reality, want things to be different, have a hard time accepting yourself, your life experiences, or holding on to feelings of rejection. Well, noted. Here's another one: fainting, feeling overwhelmed by fear, too much is going on, inability to cope, looking for a way out, feeling tired and stressed. Here's another one. The word they use is fat, which I know is a little triggering. I just want to acknowledge that. But here is some of the insight they have about it: feeling vulnerable, inadequate, unattractive, depressed, overeating to push down feelings, belief that if you are bigger, you will be able to protect yourself from pain, feeling stuck, unmotivated, and unbalanced, holding on to pain and resentment from the past, punishing yourself with food, trying to push away people and keep them at a distance, constantly procrastinating, feeling unworthy of having good things in your life. You can also see obesity or overweight in this book. Here's another one: fatigue, stress, resistance, struggle, limitation, fighting to get things done, overworking and pushing yourself beyond your limit, bored and frustrated with your life, drained by your commitments. Gosh, these are so good in this category, because the next one is fertility, difficulty conceiving, fear of losing your freedom, not feeling supported, unsure if you will make a good parent, limited ideas about parenthood, unresolved issues from childhood, blocking the process by being desperate to conceive, feeling angry, resentful, and hurt that you can't, or fearful that you may not be able to, feeling jealous or irritated that other people have children and you don't, self-criticism, lack of fun, not trusting life, not allowing yourself to enjoy your connection with children. Here's another one: fever, inner turmoil, exhaustion, fragility, feeling out of balance, undermined, fired up or angry, taking on too much responsibility, belief that situations have been dealt with unfairly, right? So there are people that have like literally spent their craft and their connection with spirit and their life experiences interpreting different kinds of physical symptoms to what that could be indicating is happening again on these emotional, mental, spiritual levels. And it can just be something really interesting to think about. Like, you will read one of those things that might relate to you or a condition that you have, and you'll know if it resonates. Like, you'll know if, okay, maybe that is something to do with me. Or if you're like, no, I don't think that this is what it is for me. So obviously trust your own discernment, but being able to sort of have a communication with your body, to start listening to your body. Like, your body is showing you what's been going on with you more so than most things. Right? And when we can start to be in partnership with our body and using our intention not only to create like external circumstances that we like, but being able to create an experience in our own skin that feels good, to be able to nurture and support our body to a state of health and vitality and balance, which is really ourself to a state of health and vitality and balance, right? Like, that is such a sacred relationship and such a wonderful thing to grow in our life and our experience. Akashic Record keepers and guides, is there anything else that you want to say on this topic? Okay, they want to end by saying this notion of perfect health is a myth. And again, this topic of health we know can trigger a lot of that sort of perfectionist energy in people, and is a way that, you know, humans use to shame themselves. Okay. And what they want to say is that going through health imbalances and conditions can be a really powerful experience with so much value, in the same way that going through like a breakup can be something that is extremely valuable and activating and empowering ultimately for you, right? Going through times when like the body is out of balance, trying to find its way back, like that can be something that is miraculous. And this idea that we're only good if our health is good is not something that feels true on a soul level, and not a perspective that they would encourage for us. The goal is not perfect health. It feels like the goal is like communion and really clear communication with the body, like our ability to sense and respond to things that are happening in the body, which is really responding to ourselves, and basically learning that process of how things manifest physically. Like us managing our health is a way of us being able to understand that really directly. And that's one of the sort of magical elements of, again, us having this experience as a human and growing, is like, again, our power to influence our reality and our power to influence our health is just a really important component of that. So how can we learn? How can we experiment? How can we use our belief and our expectation to create miracles within ourselves? How can we use this experimenting with our health to create a deeper sense of empowerment, of understanding our power to influence things, right? And also so that we can feel good. Perfect health is not really attainable, but being able to feel consistently and reliably good in your body is. To be able to feel peace or, strength or balance or vitality in your body, consistently or reliably, is an attainable goal. And it feels like maybe working towards the kind of experience that you want to have in your body would be a little bit more recommended than necessarily trying to be in perfect health and never have a bad symptom or sickness ever, right? Because even if we're looking at the language of consistently, like, it doesn't mean that there's not times where something doesn't pop up, right? Or reliably would mean even if we find ourselves in a day of feeling off, or we get a cold or something happens, the skills and knowledge that we've gained about ourselves and our body, we can use to get back to a state of feeling good. And therefore it is reliable that we can come back to a state of feeling good. So of course, all signs point back to, how do you think and feel about yourself? How do you think and feel about the world? And can we create connection between that and then how our physical body shows up in the world? And can we play with that? Can we have fun with that to, again, experience maybe miracles and healing, or simply to be able to experience things that are enjoyable to us in this body that we live our life in? If you found this topic interesting, I would like to very excitedly invite you to my winter book club. We're going to be reading Kim Duramo's book, The Mind Body Toolkit, 10 Tools to Increase Your Energy, Enhance Productivity, and Even Reverse Disease. She's one of the leading people in the world right now who's channeled through some wonderful and powerful and accurate information about like really managing and influencing our health and healing, and also has like training and expertise as a doctor. She was an ER doctor. So I'm so excited for all the things that she's going to continue to put out. But this book is phenomenal, and it's really digestible in the way that it explains and makes connections between physical health and like spiritual and mental health, and practical tools for how you can start to really embody the two of them. So if you would like to join me and a community of wonderful people where you can start building relationships with like-minded folks while sharing experiences of applying these tools and trying to get to a state of even better vitality and health, then this book club's for you. We technically meet over 4 months. The first month is going to be in December, and it's a kickoff call. You don't have to read anything by then. We set intentions. We do little energy activations. We introduce ourselves to each other. We are on WhatsApp in a chat the whole time. The more interactive you are, the more you gain from it, the more community that you build. And then we have 3 months of actual meetings about the book, and this will be in January, February, March. We'll talk about the chapters that we agreed on reading. We'll talk about the experiences of applying the tools, what everybody's taking from it. It's a really lovely time. We get to catch up with everybody, and that's on Zoom once a month. So you have a whole month to read very few pages, because this book is very short and it's a really, really easy read. So if you want 4 months of community building, if you want 4 months of channeled messages, energy activations, and coaching from me, while us all taking in this information and this book from Kim Duramo, who is spectacular, all focused on health, then I really encourage you to join. There are limited spots because I do like to keep this community kind of intimate because that relationship building is such an important component to me. But you are able to sign up anytime before the first book club meeting, which means until the end of December here in 2024. So technically the kickoff meeting is in the beginning of December, but I'm allowing people to sign up if there are still spots open through the end of December, because you can just listen back to the first recording of the first meeting and then read a little bit and join us in the first official book club meeting in January. So the link for that, if you want to join to get your ticket, will be in the description on my link tree. And of course, you can always find this on my website, healingwithbrie.net. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. If there are any other aspects of this that you're curious about or you want me to go more in depth on in the future, of course, send me a DM, put a comment, etc., etc. I love hearing your feedback about the episodes. And I'll see you guys next week for more breakthroughs. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Breakthroughs with Brie. But before you go, please take a moment to either rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it, or share this episode or maybe one of your other favorites with friends or loved ones that you think might enjoy or benefit from this content. Both of those things help more than you know, so that I can keep creating these episodes to help us all have more breakthroughs. Remember, you can connect with me on social media, sign up for my email list, hear what products, services, or events that I'm currently offering, all in the link in the show description or by visiting my website, healingwithbrie.net. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support and for the time that you're taking to heal yourself and align more with your beautiful soul, as it helps us all so much more than you realize. I'll see you all next week for more breakthroughs.